Good afternoon. Welcome back. We are very excited to have Bruce Boguski with us this afternoon, a motivational speaker. Um, as Bruce is going through his presentation, though, just a couple housekeeping items. There is a Q&A button. If you click on that tab, put in your questions, and then we will have answers, a Q&A session at the end. And then also next to that is for handouts, and you can get a copy of his presentation out there. You can also take notes and things like that in there as well. So we've not had it in the past for the other previous recording or webinars, but we have it out here for Bruce today. So would like to go ahead and introduce Bruce. Our speaker, Bruce Boguski, is an author, motivational speaker, trainer, columnist, and media personality, well known for his ability to inspire others to do the impossible. Bruce knows firsthand the attitude and skills required to overcome physical and mental challenges. At age 18, he was paralyzed as a result of an automobile accident. While doctors were wondering whether he would ever walk again, he was busy recuperating. 2 years later, he had regained full use of his body and went on to become a two-time state champion in racquetball, a football and baseball coach at Van Buren High School, and the men's and women's tennis coach at the University of Findlay. Today, Bruce is the president of the Winner's Edge, a peak performance consulting firm in Findlay, Ohio. He has become an internationally known presenter on motivational tactics and mental toughness, training for education, sports, business, and life. Please welcome Bruce Boguski. Bruce, thank you for joining us today.
And thank you, Tim. And greetings, everybody. I hope you're having a great time at this conference. As you can tell, I'm already talking fast because if you went through my handout, there's a lot of information there. I want to get to as much of it as I can. There is some fluff in there, but in this seminar, but not much, because I know that you're interested in finding out how to get more sales, how to excel, not just in sales, but maybe it's in sports or anything that you're thinking about. This seminar will help you do that. Right now, because of the isolation we've been through in the last year, because of the lockdowns, there is something sweeping across our country, and it's called learned helplessness. Now, it's been here for a while, but there's a tsunami of it coming right now because of what is going on in our social interactions with people. Now, if you don't know what learned helplessness is, you know the symptoms. The symptoms are that the person we're talking about takes no responsibility for anything that's happening to them. If they're not successful, it's not their fault. It's the boss's fault, the company's fault, the teacher's fault. They play the blame game all the time. They never try new things because they already know how it's going to work out. And I can go on, but that's what learned helplessness is. My first experience with learned helplessness came 55 years ago when I was in that car accident and was paralyzed from the neck down. I was told that I would never walk again. I'd never play sports again. As you can see, those physicians were wrong at that time. And I learned the formula while I was lying in that bed. Because since then, I've become a state champion in racquetball. I've won a club champion golf player, a state championship softball player. I've done things on the athletic arena that people said I'd never be able to do. Started my own business because I learned the formula. And I'm going to teach you the formula today, because the formula, you're probably asking yourself, what is that? Well, have you ever wondered why in the All-Star games, it's always the same players getting elected to the All-Stars almost every year, year in, year out. If you ever watch the World Series of Poker on TV, you'll see that there are a group of them that are very well respected. They're always at the final table. What's happening there? You ever go to the sales award banquets that you attend, and you see it's the same sales professionals that are getting the awards year in and year out. Here's a tip for you. Hang out with those people. Find out what they're doing, because they know the formula. Now, I learned the formula when I broke my neck because it was out of necessity. I had to learn the formula. But I learned it from another person. And that's why I'm encouraging you. Share this webinar. Share some of the techniques that you'll learn today, because you never know who's going to be able to benefit from it. The person that shared most of the things that I used today with sports teams and in my business was my night nurse. We called her Sarge, affectionately. Now, you can imagine, if you're visualizing what a night nurse named Sarge looks like right now, you're probably correct. She was a large woman, forceful, but that's exactly the kind of person that I needed in my life at that time. And she taught me one idea. I'm going to be working with a volleyball team tomorrow, and I'm going to be using this one idea in that seminar. In fact, I use this one idea every day of my life. And the one idea she taught me was visualization. Visualization actually helped me get out of that bed and to be able to walk again when everybody said that it wasn't going to happen. I use it in golf. I use it in basketball. People use it in acting. Salespeople can use visualization the night before their big presentation. A personal note, I was diagnosed with leukemia a few years ago, and I believe that visualization put that disease in remission. And if anybody wants to talk about that at a different time, find out my contact information and just give me a call. But that one idea changed my life. And if you don't think one idea can change your life, let me share something with you. When I was a kid, I don't know what kind of learner you were or how good you were in school, but I would get up in the morning and I'd sit across my mom at the table the day we had a test, and she would feed me this great breakfast. And she would ask me questions, and I got every question correct. But as soon as I got to school and the teacher passed out the exam, I forgot everything. I couldn't answer any question. Now, that probably happens to a lot of you. You'll go brain dead all of a sudden, or you'll have brain fog. And so what I did was, I'm going to try to switch this here. I wrote this book called The Testing Zone, if you can see it up there or not. And it was designed to help children perform better when they took tests. Now, Tiger Woods was the first person to buy this book because there's eye dominant switching techniques in here that'll help you make more putts. And professional athletes have used it. Salespeople have used this book for relaxing, calming down. What do you eat before a big presentation? But I almost didn't finish writing the book. And then I'm going to share with you how one idea turned a young lady's life around, and it helped me finish my book. Because she wrote a book, but she never learned how to read or write. And I brought a copy of her book to show you. Her book is called Everything That Men Know About Women. And it's empty. There's nothing in her book. Now I know that's kind of funny, and it took some guts for her to do that, but it also took creativity for her to do that. And that book changed her life, because if you look at the back, she charges $3.50 for that book. In the first year, she sold 1.2 million copies. I know you're probably asking yourself, gee, why didn't I write that book? Well, think about this. You're walking down the street, you see some of your friends, you'd say, hey, I'm going to write a book with nothing in it. What would they say to you? Yeah, they'd say you're crazy. That's nuts. Why would you waste your time? And most of us would have quit, not realizing that sometimes the craziest ideas are the best ideas. Get crazy in your sales career. Draw attention to yourself. That's what will help you be successful. If you don't believe the craziest ideas are sometimes the best, when I was a kid, believe it or not, there was a fellow that invented a thing called a pet rock. I'm serious. He made $7 million selling stones to people. That's crazy. It was a crazy idea. And to share the rest of that story with you, if you ever saw a show on TV called Andy of Mayberry, or the Andy Griffith Show was another title for it. There was a character on that show named Otis. And Barney would leave the cell door open for him on Friday night so that Otis could come in and sleep it off, because he was the town drunk. Well, guess what? The fellow that invented the pet rock, if you do your research, you'll find out he was the Otis of his community. They picked him up out of the gutter every morning. He had one idea his whole life to put all his kids through college. It bought him homes. It bought him cars. Think about it. What's that idea that you've had, that you've been afraid to share, that you've been afraid to go out and try? Well, see, what's holding you back? What's going to get you to go after those things? Well, my second slide talks about that, and it's something that Sarge taught me. When I was lying in that bed, she came in one day, and she said, you're still in that bed? And I said, yeah, they tell me I'm never going to walk. I'm going to be here a long time. And she said, what are you doing to get out of that bed? I said, well, I tried positive thinking. I tried positive attitude, but nothing seems to work. She said, well, of course that's not going to work. What you have to develop is a positive belief. And this is step one of the formula, a positive belief. And I asked her, I said, what's the difference? Positive thinking is positive belief. And she said, it's not even close. And then she told me the story of the fellow that's on that slide. And it illustrates the difference between positive thinking and positive belief. And that fellow's name is Philippe. He's a Frenchman that came over here in 1928. He was going to be the first person to walk across Niagara Falls on a high wire. Now, if you look at that picture, you realize he's not your normal high wire walker. He's not using a parasol. He's not well, he does have a balance beam there, but what he's doing is he's pushing across a wheelbarrow, and that wheelbarrow is full of 200 pounds of bricks. Now, when people heard that he was going to do this, they came from all over America and all over Canada to watch this crazy Frenchman try this. But to show you how negative people get when they get older, they all came to see one thing happen. What was that? Yeah, they wanted to come see the guy fall. Honey, let's take the kids. Oh, he starts going across the falls, and everything's going great. But when he gets in the middle, he starts losing his balance, and people are starting to panic. But Philippe's just having fun with him. He's just giving them their money's worth. He gets all the way across, and when he gets there, the reporters start asking him all kinds of questions. And finally, he's had enough. He says, look, you've asked me questions for a long time. Can I ask you some? They thought that was kind of unusual, but they said, okay, if you got a question, fire away. He went up to one of the reporters, and he said, look, do you think I can push this wheelbarrow back across the falls? Do you think I can do that? The reporter looked at him and said, well, I saw you come over here. You did pretty good. Yeah, I think you can do it. He went up to another reporter and said, do you really believe? Do you believe I can push the wheelbarrow back across the falls? And the reporter looked at him and said, well, you had some problems coming over here. And I don't know what you're getting at, but you do this every day. You practice all the time. You know what? I really believe you can do it. And when Philippe heard that, he emptied out the wheelbarrow. And he said, if you really believe it, get in the wheelbarrow. And guess what? That's the difference between positive thinking and positive belief. In the career of sales, the first thing your employer is going to ask you is to get in the wheelbarrow, to believe. It takes two things to do that. You may have to change your expectations. Expectations are so important in being able to get your goals, to increase sales. Did you ever see one of these? That 8-ball that you ask it questions, it determines your expectations. When you ask that 8-ball if you're going to win the ball game, and it came back and said, all my sources point to yes, it changed your expectations. Will I fall in love this year? And the 8-ball said, my sources say no. You can just feel your expectations go down. Positive expectations will determine your belief. They'll also determine what you're willing to try to achieve the goals that you set. Second thing that determines your positive belief are the habits that you have. I'm going to switch to the other screen right now, real quick. I don't know if you can see this. This is a monkey trap. Chain on it. They used to hang it from a tree, and they put a gem inside of here. Now, the monkey would go by, and he would reach inside to get the gem. And when he put his hand in there and grabbed onto the gem, he was trapped. He could not get out of there without letting go of the gem. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. If you really want to be number one in sales, if you want to make the kind of money to support your family in the way that you always wanted to, what are you going to have to let go of? What do you have? Number one, it might be fear. You have to let go of some fear. You might have to let go of some habits that you've gotten into. You may have to let go of some of the friends that you know, and you're probably already thinking about them. There are certain friends, people we hang around with, that sap us of our energy, that deflate the room, that deflate us. Lou Holtz wrote in a book one time that he can tell where you're going to be in 5 years by the books that you're reading and the people that you're hanging around with. Some of the habits you may have to stop and let go of. Some of the foods that you're eating. The sugar that you're putting into your system is affecting your brain. It's giving you brain fog. You know that the average child back in 1960 ate 7 pounds of sugar a year? Today, the average child at the age of 10 ingests over 163 pounds of sugar a year. Oh, way too much for our bodies to process. So we have to let some things go. Let things go and grab onto some new things. Now, what's holding you back? Well, there is a part of your brain, and it's called the reticular activating system. This is actually your focusing device. I'll give you 2 examples of how it works. If you ever bought a brand new car and it was a very unusual color, I bought one that was called Jamaican teal once. It was a Buick. When I drove it off the parking lot, I was going back to Philly, and I said, I can't wait for people to see the color of this car. And on the way to Finley, I saw 4 cars that color. There were 3 of them parked in the parking lot of Deezus. There were 2 by the courthouse. These cars were everywhere. Were those cars there before? Yeah. It's just that the reticular activating system wasn't focused on them. If you could focus on sales all the time, you'd have everything you wanted. It's just there's so many distractions in the modern world. Remember when your wife was first pregnant with your first child, and every place you went with your wife, didn't it seem like everybody was pregnant? Because that's what your brain was focused on. So we need to control the focusing device. Well, in order to do that, the focusing device, I have a different name for the reticular activating system. I call it the little voice in the back of your mind. And now most people know what I'm talking about. Yes, there is a voice there. The reticular activating system is the part of your brain that generates your thoughts that only you can hear. In fact, your voice talks to you 50,000 times a day. That's how many thoughts the average person has in one day. But you never hear the voice until you get in a pressure packed situation. And then you can't shut the little sucker up. And it's telling you things like, you can't do that. That'll never work. Who do you think you are? What a terrible idea. And pretty soon, you stop whatever it is that you were going after. Now, if you don't believe me, let me ask you a question. How many of you out there talk to yourself? Raise your hand if you talk to yourself. I know you're in a room by yourself and you're raising your hand. It's kind of funny, but three things usually happen every time I ask that question. Number one, especially if I'm with a large audience, people start giggling and they go, well, I did once, a long time ago, maybe. Second thing that happens when I ask people if they talk to themselves is they raise their hands in a very special way. They go like this. Don't want to be the only one. Third thing that happens is kind of amazing. First time I noticed this, I was working with a football team. I asked these young men, who in this room talks to themselves? Well, about 2/3 of them raised their hand right away. But the other third of them, they were sitting there going, oh, I don't know. Do I talk to myself? And guess what? We all do this. Everybody does it, but your little voice actually lies to you a lot. It doesn't tell you the truth. Let me prove this to you. I need your help to prove this to you, and I hope you don't mind doing a little exercise with me while you're sitting there at your desk. What I'd like you to do is take your left hand and guarantee me right now that you're going to give me everything you got with this. If you're in a room by yourself, if you're with other people, that's okay. You're going to give me everything you got. I want you to take and raise your left hand up in the air as high as you can get it. Come on, as high as it'll go. Hey, back there, is that as high as it goes? That as high as it goes over there? That as high as it goes in the middle? Awesome. Now that your hand is up as high as it can go, I want you to take and raise it just 1/4 inch higher. Go on, go for it. If you're like most people, right now in your room, you reached a 1/4 inch higher. You stretched. Some people, right at the beginning, you got up and you stood in your chair because you stood on the floor because you realized I asked you to give me 100%. But even if you did that, when I said go 1/4 inch higher, most of you stood on your toes. This is powerful stuff. The little voice lies to you. So what do we need to do? We need to change the voice. We change the voice. How do we do that? We do it two ways. Number one, always remember, what time is it? There's a little watch there. And I don't know if you can see my watch. I got a watch right here. I'm holding up to the camera. This is weird because it's always left is right and right is left in that camera. But that watch has nothing in it. I wear it on the golf course. I wear it when I'm doing seminars like this to remind me I can mess up. I can make a mistake. Doesn't make any difference. It's over. Can't do anything about it. And I can't worry about what's going to happen next. Staying in the now. It's not easy. In fact, at Stanford University, they actually did research on this, and they found out the average person in America spends 56 minutes out of every hour worrying about what's going to happen in the future and regretting what happened in the past, and only 4 minutes an hour on the only moment they can do anything about, the now. Figure out ways to bring this into your life, because with every passing day, it gets harder to focus on the now. Right now, what are we focused on? We're focused on Afghanistan. We're focused on COVID. We're focused on having enough food. We're focused on a lot of different things, and it's really hard to focus on the now. So a football coach I work with, he went into school really early in the morning, about 3 o'clock in the morning, covered every clock in the school up with a piece of paper and put the word now on it. So it's football team, but remember, stay in the now. Now, he also broke the huddle that night by going, ready, now. And no matter what happened on that last play, the kids were trained to stay in the now and forget about it. The second thing that you can do to change your voice is to use affirmation training. Affirmations are simply positive statements that you say to yourself over and over again. They're always done in first person, present tense, like they're already happening to you. I just got a call from a young girl last night. She is a libero on a volleyball team. And she said, before every point, I start doubting my abilities. And her and I have already formed affirmations about her. And I said, are you saying your affirmations a lot during the day? And she said, no. I said, start saying them 25 times every time you do it. 25 in the morning, 25 at noon, 25 at night, in study hall, whenever you do it. And pretty soon, the affirmation will come to your mind instead of focusing on your weaknesses. I work with a golfer at Michigan State. And after every shot, I told her to think of her affirmations. She won her cue card at the competition that she was at by doing that. Let me give you an example of an affirmation. My favorite affirmation that I use all the time is this. I am always calm and confident under pressure. I am always calm and confident under pressure. If you notice, there's two different body languages. You can see that. And there's two different voice inflections. Because when you change your body, different areas of the brain are firing off and allowing you to store the information. See, when you say an affirmation enough, it's like advertising yourself to yourself. Do you think advertising works? If you don't think advertising works, tell me what product this is associated with, what company. Just do it. Yeah, Nike comes right to mind. And for you people that are a little bit older, see if you can finish this advertising slogan. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is. Some of you are going, I don't know that one. Well, the reason you don't know that is because that advertisement has not been heard in its entirety for over 30 years, but I guarantee about half of you remember what it was. How about this one? How do you spell relief? R-O-L-A-I-D-S should be coming to your mind right now. You see little Speedy down there. That one hasn't been heard in 15 years, but people remember it. I remember speaking at the Cleveland Clinic, and I was talking to doctors and nurses, and I asked them, how do you spell relief? And they said, F-A-R-T. Man, we had a great time with that group. I just did that to liven it up a little bit. But see, if you don't believe that affirmations can take over, the king of affirmations was a fellow that you probably all heard about. His name was Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali used to walk around saying his affirmation. And his affirmation was, I am the greatest. And he said it so many times that he really believed it was true. He thought nobody could beat him. He was on an airplane once flying down to Miami Beach, and the stewardess was walking up and down the aisle. And he looked down at the champion of the world and said, gee, champ, I'm sorry, but everybody has to have their seatbelt buckled before this plane's going to take off. And Ali looked up at her disdainfully, and he said, look, miss, Superman don't need any seatbelt. He was quick, and she said, oh, yeah? Well, Superman don't fly any airplane. So you better buckle up. And he did. And the point is, he really had this belief. Start making some affirmations about yourself. First person, present tense, like they're already true. Make 3 or 4 of them. Say them 25 times in the morning, 25 times at lunch, 25 times before you go to bed. The important one is before you go to bed. Do you realize your brain will work on those affirmations all night long while you're asleep? Give it a shot. It can't hurt. The next slide. Okay. All right. This is so cool, this system that you're using. The cybernetic system that's part of the reticular activating system. That little voice we talked about is part of the cybernetic system. That's your success system in your brain. The reason I'm telling you that is because it's activated by questions. Most of us are not using the right questions to activate our success system. When I was lying in that hospital bed, every morning when I got up, I said, why me? Why me? When you ask yourself why questions, they focus you on the problem rather than bringing you solutions. The better questions to ask are what and how questions. I can prove that to you. I hope we have golfers out there, but think about this. You're on the first tee at your golf course, and you're thinking to yourself, why? Why do I always go on the lake on this hole? Think of the answers that are flooding into your brain. All kinds of great answers. You're lined up wrong. You're using the wrong club. You're facing the wrong way. All kinds of stuff. Now think of this. You ask yourself, what can I do to get the ball in the middle of the fairway? Change grip, stance in a good posture, swing slower. All kinds of answers are coming, but they're solution-based. They don't direct you to the problem. Important thing you just learned, ask yourself the correct question. Now, the cybernetic system is also fueled by goals. Now, if we were in a room together, I would ask you, how many of you have goals set for yourselves? And I'm sure that most of you had your hands up. But there's three things about goals. Now, I usually have this set up where they'll come in one at a time. So that evidently that is not working. It's probably our fault for setting it the incorrect way. But the first thing, if you've never studied goals, is to write them down. How many of you have I can have people tell me they have goals, but when I ask them if they wrote them down, they haven't. It's the hardest thing to get people to do. Have you ever gone grocery shopping without a list? What ends up in your cart? Everything. And guess what? Your life is going to be full of junk also if you don't write down the goals. At Harvard Business School, this is Harvard we're talking about, back in 1954, the graduating class did an exit interview. And they were asking them if they had goals and who had goals written down. They found out that, hard to believe, 84% of those students didn't even have goals. 13% had goals, but they didn't write them down. 3% had actually taken the time to write down the goals. 35 years later, in doing research on that graduating class, they found out that the 3% that actually wrote down the goals had amassed 10 times the wealth than all the rest of the 97% put together. When I read that, I ran home and wrote down 3 goals. I want to be doing what those people are doing to be successful. The second thing, if you see it right there, it's make your goals big. It adds emotion. If I told you right now, believe it or not, by the time Christmas comes, I'm going to lose a quarter pound. Some of you start laughing. But if I told you I was going to lose 20, when this session was over, some of you would send me emails on the techniques that you use because it's motivating. There were 2 sales people that went to hear Ziglar speak years ago. When they came out of that meeting, the young woman said to the man, let's write some goals like Zig said. He said, that's a good idea. So they wrote their goals down and put them in a hat. The young man said, I'm going to make $90,000 next year. The woman thought about that. She said, man, we just heard Zig Ziglar talk. I'm going to make $1 million next year. At the end of the year, they came back and reviewed their goals, and the young man said, yeah, I crushed my goal, made $110,000. The young woman went to her envelope and opened it up, and she said, I only made it 3/4 of the way to my goal. Make your goals big. Shoot for the moon. If you shoot for the moon and you miss, guess what? You become a star. I had that on my computer the first 2 years of my business. That's a good one to write down on a note card and carry in your wallet. And the last one, if you look at it up there, is called it's visualizing your goals. I love Lou Holtz. I got to hear him speak once at Notre Dame when I worked with his football team, and he talked to the incoming freshmen, and he told them the story about visualizing goals. He had a friend that wanted to buy a golden Corvette, so he took pictures of that Corvette and brought them home, put them all over his house. Great technique, putting your goals on pictures all over your house. Collages in your locker room, collages on your dashboard, in your car. And he put these pictures everywhere. His favorite one was on his shaving mirror. Every morning he got up, and as he was shaving, he saw that picture. His wife came in and said, honey, what is that? That's the car that we're going to buy at the end of the year, honey. He said, well, you got pictures in the living room, you got them in the kitchen, you got them everywhere. He says, yeah, we're going to get that car. Well, about 2 months later, she ran in that bathroom and said, that picture's too big in that mirror. I can't put my makeup on. I can't tease my hair. Please take it down. He said, no way. I got to see it to get it. He went to work, and his boss made fun of him because he put those pictures all over work. And he said, these are all over the plant. You're not going to get that car. It's distracting everybody on the assembly line. You got to take these pictures down. He said, no way, boss. I got to see it to get it. With 1 week left to go, the car dealer called him and said, you're about $1,200 short. He said, well, can you help me out? And the car dealer said, I know how hard you work for this. And if you come down here, I don't know. If you come down here with cash, we'll sell you the car. He said, awesome. He ran down there, gave him the money, jumped in his brand new Corvette. did some low riding around town, had some fun, pulled in front of his house, didn't say anything to anybody. He got out of his car. He went upstairs, slept like a baby that night. Couldn't wait to get up in the morning and go to work, show everybody his brand new Corvette. Well, when he got up in the morning, he ran downstairs, he got in the shower, and he towel dried himself. He walked over to the mirror to shave, and there on the mirror was a picture of a fur coat and a diamond ring. Because everybody, once you start getting your goals, wants to be just like you. Hey, take pictures of your goals. Write them down. Put them everywhere. Put them on note cards. These are things we used to do years ago, and people were breaking all kinds of, we set tons of records back then. We could learn from that. Here's something you could learn from. Matching and mirroring. We're going to set you up for your sales call. Have you ever heard of matching and mirroring before? Most people have, but they're afraid to try it. I've got another book here that I'm going to just hold up. I hope I can do this correctly. It's called Sales Magic by Kerry Johnson, Kerry. It's phenomenal. It is a book that every salesperson needs to have. He talks about matching and mirroring. You know that people that really like you, when you're talking to them, they'll do exactly what you're doing. And you probably had this happen to you. You met somebody new at a party and you've been sitting there talking to them for a while, and all of a sudden you realize, wow, we're both leaning forward. We're both holding our drinks in the same hand. We both have our hands in our pocket. It's amazing. And do you know that if people, it's an adversary, they will mix match you and do the exact opposite of what you do. You want to establish rapport with people. So match and mirror them. How do you do that? Make eye contact. Match them. Look them in the eye. Match their tone, the speed of their voice. If they cross their legs, you cross your legs. If they put their hands on the table, you put your hands on the table. If they take a drink of water, you take a drink of water. It's important to establish rapport, because then if you're sitting at a table and you've got rapport with someone, when you lean forward, if they lean forward too, you know what you do next? You get the contract out and have them sign. So many people lose sales by continuing to talk after they've established rapport and the customer's already told them, I'm ready to do this. Do yourself a favor. Shut up and get out the pen. Okay. So matching and mirroring. Now, it's easy to do. You can try it in restaurants. You can try it at happy hour. Pay attention to what someone's doing and just give it a shot. Watch what they're doing. Start imitating. You know, if you do this at a happy hour, I guarantee you, the person that you're doing this to, even though they can't even see you, will be over to talk to you within 10 minutes if you keep it up. If you can't give up right away. You know, and this is natural. We do this naturally, especially if we like people. Have you ever been to Alabama for a vacation? And when you came back to Ohio, how did you talk for 2 or 3 days? Yes, because you established rapport. They established rapport with you. And now you're probably thinking that they're afraid to try this because they said that person will notice what I'm doing. No, they won't notice what you're doing. I've tried this so many times. I do this in a lot of social instances. It's maybe once or twice it's happened that someone knew, but it didn't make any difference. They came up to me and I was talking to them just a few minutes later. I've got to give you this. If you're mirroring and matching someone and they do this and you do it back at them, they may have some kind of idea that you're doing something quirky with them. Okay. So don't mimic the abhorrent behavior that someone is doing. They usually won't notice. Now, another thing in sales, maybe you never heard about this, but it's important to sell to the learning style of the person you're speaking to. There are 3 learning styles. There are more than that, but there are 3 that we talk about all the time. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Kinesthetics are the feelers, the people that like to learn with their feelings. It's really important that you tell who they are, because visual, when you're talking to a visual, your appearance should be really good. If you're selling a car, that car better be polished. If you have pictures or if you have graphs, visuals love those. So if you know that about them, you'll be prepared for the meeting. If it's an auditory, you might want to play specific kind of music. There are actually CDs that have bird chirping on them. That aggravates some people, but auditories, some of them may really like that. Or a thunderstorm, or rain to relax you. Kinesthetics. When you're speaking to them, talk about the safety of the product or the service that you're selling. Talk about the security. Talk about the feelings that are associated with selling this product, and you'll have them. So it's important to know what kind you're speaking to. Well, how can you tell? Well, when I taught school at Van Buren, I taught business classes, and I would stand out in the hallway on the first day of school. I would teach them a skill. I would introduce myself and shake their hand. By the way, everybody needs to relearn this skill. There are so many people that don't shake hands correctly. And this is your first impression, which you can't change no matter what people say to you. The handshake must be firm. 3 shakes at the most. Eye contact and a big old smile. You have to all those must be contained in a successful handshake. But when I was standing out in the hallway, I would ask these kids questions about their past. How was your summer vacation? Or their future. Who's going to win the World Series? And I would watch their eyes. Visual learners look up before they answer questions about past or future. And if the question was about the past, they'll look up to the right before, or excuse me, the future. They'll look up to the right before they answer to activate future part of the brain. If the question was about the past, they'll glance up to the left to activate past part of the brain. If you're talking to a visual, sometimes they will be unfocused and act like they're just staring with a blank look in their eye. Give them a moment. What they're doing is they're analyzing what you just told them. They're putting pictures to what you just told them. Okay? Here's something you might want to use. You can tell, if I can show you right now how you could tell whether a customer was lying to you by watching their visual eye movements, would you want to know how to do that? It could kind of come in handy. By the way, this also works with spouses. You want to learn now? I'm just kidding with you. If you ask a customer a question like, can you afford this? If they look up and to the right before they answer the question, they're in the future, creating the answer. They're making it up. They're lying to you, whatever that answer is. And if you're not sure yet, maybe this customer is a friend of yours and you don't want to accuse them of that. If they take their left hand and touch it to their left cheek, you can be sure they're telling you a fib right to your face. These are powerful cues that are given in Kerry Johnson's book. It's an awesome book. I've had it for over 25 years, and it never outwears itself. Now, auditory learners, when you ask them questions about past or future, they look straight ahead and to the left. If it's about the past, straight ahead and to the right. If it's about the future. Something else they will do, they will, if they look down and to the left, they're activating emotions. And what you should do, if you ever see an auditory learner doing that, stop your presentation just for 5 seconds, because they are really assimilating what you're saying. And you don't want to get too far past them. See, this could be valuable stuff. You might think they're not paying attention to you. And here what they're doing is they paid attention and they're trying to analyze what it is they just heard. Now, a kinesthetic will always look down and to the right, no matter what kind of question you ask them, because that's how they activate feelings, looking down and to the right. And they'll take their hand and maybe put it over their mouth like this. Or they'll take their pen and chew on it. Or they'll take if they're a woman and have long hair, they'll take their hair and maybe put it in their mouth while they're talking to you. That happens with high school kids a lot, but that's an indication that they are a kinesthetic learner. So then, after you know this, you can sell to the learning style. Okay, now, we're going to do some things about these next 2 slides. These are things to get your brain in shape for a sales call. Probably something you never heard about before. I encourage you to look up the word across the top of this slide. Cross crawl. Look it up. When you look up cross crawl or you Google it and you click on it, it'll give you 40 to 50 benefits that your brain is getting by doing cross crawl. Simply taking your opposite hand. I like to do my elbow and touch it to the opposite knee. You do it very slowly and come across the midpoint of your body. If you Google this, they're going to expect you to do 400 of these a day. Hey, that's not very much. Once you start doing them, you'll see. I do about 160, I guess. I do a lot on the golf course. Hey, if you're ever in a slump, if you ever have brain fog, if the right words aren't coming to your mind or you can't overcome an objection that the client has, if you can do cross crawl, that will help you immediately. It'll take you out of your slump. It activates both hemispheres of the brain. It activates actually a part of the brain called the corpus callosum, which is right along the middle, which brings the hemispheres together. Here's another one for you that I wasn't going to, it's not on my list, but as a salesperson, when you're going into a sales call, sometimes your brain will get stuck. There's a thing called the ultradian cycle. This unsticks that cycle. And you'll know when your brain is stuck because you won't be able to overcome objections. You won't be searching for words. You won't remember the customer's name, that's really sad. So here's something for you. Next time you're going into a sales call and you want to be really creative, there are two hemispheres to your brain. There's a right hemisphere and the left. I'm going to shorten this up. The hemisphere that's your creative side is your right side. The analytical side is your left. So if you're going into a sales call, you want to be on the right side of your brain. However, your brain goes through a thing called the ultradian cycle, which I already mentioned, where your brain switches dominant sides on you every 90 minutes or so, whether you want it to or not. So you could be going into a sales call and you're dominant on the left side of your brain. Well, that's good for balancing checkbooks, but it's not good for overcoming objections. So you want to get to the right side. So what do you say? I'll be back in 90 minutes, okay? No, you can't do that. You've got an appointment. So you switch to the right side. You mean you can switch hemispheres of your brain? Yep. And here's the way to do it. I'm going to show you two ways because sometimes you can't do one, other times you can't do the other. But this one is called a lazy 8. You take your left hand. The right side of the brain controls left side of the body. So if you take your left hand and start at eye level and go upwards and out and make a sideways figure 8. Now I'm doing it really small now because of the camera, but do it really big. And make sure you come across the midpoint of your body. After about 10 of these, the right side of the brain has so much activity occurring in it that you can switch hemispheres of the brain. It won't last as long as the ultradian cycle, so you'll have to do it periodically. Now, sometimes you can't do that. Get this one. They found out that the average person has a dominant nostril. If you want to find out what nostril is dominant right now on your ultradian cycle, take a breath through your left nostril. Take one through your right nostril. And right now you can hear my right nostril's clogged up. So that means my right one's free, my left one's free, which means I'm on the right side of my brain because I already did this before I started this seminar. Okay. So I'm on the right side of my brain and my right nostril's dominant. Well, they found out that your nostril switches dominance also. And guess what the time frame was? 90 minutes. So if you can't do the figure 8, you might want to try this. Take 3 deep breaths with your left nostril. Okay, I'm going to take only one for time situation. Take 3 of them. You can switch to the right side of your brain. See, sometimes you can't do this. Other times you can't do this. For instance, suppose you're coming home from a trip and you're speeding and a state patrolman pulls you over. And he comes up to the window and you want to have a good excuse while you were speeding, so you want to be creative. But he comes up to the window and you can't be going, you're going to go to jail, okay? And you don't want to do this. Hi, officer, how you doing? So you might want to switch before he gets up to that window. I'm just kidding you. I just want you to laugh so you remember these techniques. Cross crawl and brain hemisphere switching. Now, the next one. This is important as a salesperson. There are muscles you can stretch to make you a better performer, especially when you're under pressure. The calf pump. The first muscle in your body that's going to tighten up when you're under pressure or you're anxious or you're frustrated is the calf muscle. This is called the tendon guard reflex reaction. If you don't believe it's true, watch a basketball game or a baseball game or a football game this year, and you'll see that every time an athlete cramps up, they cramp up in the calf. Okay? So stretch the calf. What they found out was this is why kids that are autistic or speech impaired walk on their toes a lot. But they also found out when they put the kids on a stretching program, their verbal skills increased dramatically. That's powerful because if you do the calf pump, your presentation skills get better. All right? I'm going to go through some things fast because I see we're about 5 minutes away from, and this is a powerful one. Before you go into a sales call, if you've ever heard of a thing called power posing, I didn't try power posing for the longest time because I thought it was crazy. It's nuts, actually, but it works. I didn't think so, so for 5 years I didn't try it. There's a young lady named Amy Cuddy, Cuddy. Google her and go to her TED Talk. It's a 20-minute TED Talk on power posing. When you do power posing, your testosterone levels go up 20%, your cortisol levels go down 10%. And this is what happens in a peak performer's body when they're facing adversity and they are a successful performer. Now, a power pose is simply a powerful position that you take for 2 minutes. You have to take it for 2 minutes. You know, you can go to the restroom, you can do it in your car before you go in your sales call. I know it sounds crazy, but if you watch Amy's TED Talk, and if you probably think you've never seen power posing done, but if you've ever watched a television show called Grey's Anatomy, Dr. Gray, before any operation she ever does, stands in front of the mirror and does a power pose for 2 minutes. When she had an operation performed on her about 4 seasons ago, everyone in the operating room had to do a power pose before she allowed them to put her under the anesthetic. Power posing. If you don't know what power pose is, here's a few of them for you. Wonder Woman would be a great one. Okay? Superman is another one. I got to get him out. There he is. And you can see he's got 2 of them. The kids that I work with like this one. Usain Bolt, world's fastest human. They really like that bottom one to the right. They have fun doing that one. My favorite power pose of all time is Rocky Balboa. I do this with athletic teams. Let's say that you just lost a sale and you walk out of that office and your shoulders are slumped down. We have to get a different reaction, because if you don't get a different reaction, your next sales call is going to suffer because of how you reacted to the last sales call. So here's what I teach athletes. First of all, I have them realize that if you're playing a sport and your body, if your shoulder slumped forward, and maybe you just made a mistake, you missed a putt or you missed a tackle, you do that because you care. You care about your teammates, you care about the coach, you care about the school. And so we take care of this right away. And I do it by having all of them stand up. I give them 30 seconds, and they reach out to as many teammates as they can, shake their hand, look them in the eye, use their first name, and they say, Bob, I really care about you. Jimmy, I really care about you. Ed, I really care about you. And they have so much fun doing this. It's fun to watch a football team do this. A lot of men have never said to each other that I care about you. And it changes everything. So I tell them, guess what? You never have to have bad body language again after a bad mistake or after a sales call, because you know people in the company care about you, people on your team care about you. And some of them go, wait a second. Every once in a while, I'm still going to want to hit something or kick something. Can you show me something to do instead? And so I tell them about Rocky. When he ran down the streets of Philadelphia, went up the stairs to the museum. When he got to the top of the museum, he did that. Remember? He did that. That's called the Rocky. And then I have the whole team. I tell them, instead of doing this and sloping forward, let's practice doing something else. And I said, I want you to pretend like you're at that on that building. And I want you to give me your best Rocky impersonation, but I want you to do it as quietly as you can, because I want you to repeat something after me. So you got to be able to hear me. So I don't want you going, you, Adrian, or anything like that, because I want you to be able to hear me. I said, okay, go for it. And everybody will start jumping up and down, and they'll say, repeat after me. I'm depressed. I'm upset. I'm so sad. And guess what? Nobody on that team can be sad. Your body cannot be depressed. You cannot be sad when it's doing this. And that's a different reaction to stress. Salespeople use this one after a bad experience, maybe at a sales call or something like that. Now, I know the time it's 2:49 right now, and that we've got 1 minute left, and I can't get to that next slide in the time that we have. And I'm so sorry about that. It's really hard to tell, hard to judge the time frames when you're doing something live like this. So I'm not sure how we're going to do this with the questions and answers, but we can go to questions and hi, Tim. It's Tim that's working this for me.
I'm back.
Okay. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank you for the opportunity to do this. And I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got 1 or 2 techniques you can use on your next sales call to increase sales. Maybe some things to help your kids in school or in their sports performance. But I enjoyed being here and being with you, and I hope you got as much out of this as I did. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. I was laughing, cracking up as you're going through that. It was great information.
Oh,
I wrote down a lot of notes here. Have to see it to get it. Cross crawl, brain hemisphere switching, power posing, a lot of stuff in it. I mean, it is, you think about it, but it is true. So, I mean, it's great information. There were a few questions that came in. Can you talk about the books again that you held up with the name of the book and the authors?
Yeah, Carrie Johnson wrote this one. It's called Sales Magic. Carrie, Kerryl Johnson. It's called Revolutionary New Techniques That Will Double Your Sales Volume in 21 Days. He will teach you how to practice finding out whether a customer's audio, visual, kinesthetic, how to establish rapport as soon as you walk into the room, the correct questions to how to overcome objections. And he does it one chapter for 21 days, and you get that habit in your system. Then you go to chapter number 2. It's a powerful book for salespeople. And my book is called The Testing Zone, and it's based upon the driver system. And each one of those is an acronym. We talk about diet, being able to relax, your individuality, visualization, energy levels, relaxation. And you can get that by contacting me through my business. And since I'm speaking at your company, we're going to offer you probably half price on that.
Awesome. Great information. I'll kind of go through some of the questions here. And some people were having fun with this too and joking around.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, like one of our said, I frequently battle the little in my head, LOL. So I'm just going through some of the questions here. A lot of them were around the author and the name of the book. I think there's a lot of interest around that. Compliment here. I don't know how you connect, but he is really good. Power in his words and his attitude. And I think it's important. I think that's what we need in today's times too. Is especially as we're dealing with the COVID and dealing with everything. I mean, it's great to hear things like this.
Well, I hope someday, hopefully, we can do something live, because that's my real forte on something live.
No, absolutely. There was one question: is how do you spell that cycle?
The Ultradian cycle, ULTRADIAN.
Ultradian cycle.
Ultradian.
Okay. Perfect.
You'll come close with that. I'm pretty sure. That's funny. I use the technique there. If your kids are having trouble spelling, have them try this. Have them look up and to the left to activate past part of the brain and visualize how the word is spelled. And in a movie called The Killer and the Bee, you're able to spell words 15% better when you do that. So,
I was looking forward to. I thought you were going to give us a secret of how to tell if your spouse was lying or not.
I did. If you're grilling her or him and they look up and to the right or touch their left hand to their cheek, they're probably not telling it. And in Carrie Johnson's book, he'll tell you. He'll tell you in greater detail.
Good to know. So, and just a reminder for everyone that's out there, under the handouts tab is a copy of Bruce's PowerPoint out here. And then again, his presentation will be saved and will be out there to view either later today or first thing in the morning as well. Bruce, I don't see any, let me just make sure here. I just see just the compliments out here and everything, just saying great job, great information.
I saw that there was one person said they want my book, and my secretary just stuck her head in here, and she said, let them know they can have a copy of my book and my CD. I have one called The Monday Motivator. It's 58 one-minute motivational messages, 58 of them on one CD. And we normally sell those for, I think it's $37 together. You can have them both for $10. All you got to do is reach out to my office, and plus you got to pay shipping, but that's not much. I think that's a great deal. My secretary's going to make me go broke.
Yeah, if you guys, if agents are interested in that, let us know, and then we can just put in one order over to.
That's great.
So that way you're only dealing with just one big order versus a bunch of small ones there.
Thanks for thinking of that, Tim.
So, all right. Well, I don't see any other. I don't see. One question around the handshake. You mentioned about the power of a handshake.
Yeah.
How do you deal with today's time with COVID?
Oh, yeah. Most people when I've been dealing with athletic team, well, people are shaking hands again now, but I've been doing fist bumps, elbow bumps. Those are the kind of things I'm doing. I guess you can't really do much with it. When I taught school, though, I actually got feedback from my students when I taught them how to shake hands. One kid even told me at a high school reunion that he said, I married my wife because of you. And I said, because of me? And he said, yeah, I went to pick her up for a date, and her dad, who was like 6'4", 240 pounds, and everybody was afraid to date this girl. He came to the door and he held out his hand, and I shook his hand, and I did exactly what you told me. And he turned around and said, Irene, we finally got a keeper here. And he ended up marrying that girl.
Nice, nice.
I guess, but I have a lot of different, and I don't know. I think everybody has different opinions about COVID. I've been keeping my immune system up as best as I possibly can, and I find myself after years of shaking hands, I do it. I reach out, and if someone doesn't want to, I understand that, but I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I guess right now.
Sure. I mean, obviously, changing times, and hopefully we'll get through this sooner rather than later and get back to as much normalcy as we possibly can. So
we can pray on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bruce, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate all the agents on this listening in as well. Great information, very inspiring too, your story, as well. So again, we really appreciate it. Appreciate your time, and we'll get a list of names over to you as well. So
thank you so much. If you want to get a list of names to me with emails, I can get in contact with people. They can contact me. You can give out my emails. I'm not sure if you want me to or if you were going to do that, but you can give out my email address if you ever want to.
What is your email address if you want?
One comes to me personally is B Boguski. So that's BBOGUSKI at ATT.net. So that's really easy.
Nice. Okay.
Thank you
very much. Okay. Well,
Thanks,
thank
everybody.
you for attending, and take care. Thanks again,
Thanks.
Bruce. Appreciate it.
Wishing you all the best.
Oh,